This is a grant proposal for the living room. It is a project being put in place by the National Alliance on Mental Illness in West Central Indiana. My name is Gabrielle Saunders. I'm a MPH candidate in Family and Community Health at Purdue University. Now, the National Alliance on Mental Illness in West Central Indiana, this is a branch of a grassroots organization. It's a 501c3 nonprofit. Um, and West Central Indiana is located out of West Lafayette, Indiana, serving 8 counties of people with mental illness and their families. It doesn't actually generate any revenue at all. So it requires a grant for this project because the living room will not actually be charging for its fees, and I will go into that in a moment. The grant is required to start up the living room in order to pay the licensed clinicians and other professionals that will be staffing the living room as peer supports and to find a space as well for the service. So the partner, NAMI West Central Indiana, was founded in 1979. It's part of a grassroots organization, as I said, and its mission is to advocate for and offer support, effective treatment, and education for individuals and families affected by mental illness in our community. It basically is focused on mental health support and has events put on like an ice cream social for the homeless, or is doing a crisis intervention training for law enforcement, and trying to start up the living room project. The NAMI DePage actually runs its own living room project, but NAMI West Central Indiana is trying to get one in its location that is pretty similar, but serves this population. So basically, those with psychiatric emergencies right now have to go to hospital emergency rooms. They wait a long time. The environment exacerbates their psychological symptoms. And the hospital can't really do anything for them. They can, refer them to a psychiatrist and send them on their way. So there's really no point in doing that. The living room is an alternative to the emergency room for psychiatric emergencies, basically a place where people who are having psychiatric emergencies can go to when, like I said, in times of crisis, in times of need, where they can't wait to be seen by a psychiatrist, and they can't just, be seen and then sent away again, or charged a lot of money and be sent away again. So the living room would address crucial mental health crises before they escalate to bigger problems that are harder to solve. Some of the outcomes for the living room's goals. The outcomes include having less ER visits that are solely for mental health crises and having greater access to licensed mental health clinicians. And in the medium term, one outcome is to have more attendance of NAMI support groups, just to help moderate mental health in the meantime, like everyday time. The other medium-term outcome is that patients don't have to wait a long time to see psychiatrists and get mental health support. And then in the long term, the outcomes are fewer lethal mental health crises in the jurisdiction area, and having people who have mental health problems have greater success in their life, for example, in their jobs and in schooling as well. So the question is, how do we do this? The plan of work is, I propose to create the NAMI West Central Indiana Living Room as a place for those who are in mental health crisis to go to instead of a hospital. That the living room will actually provide access to mental health support, psychiatric practitioners, and peer supports as well. And it'll give referral to aftercare, like NAMI health support groups. This requires stakeholders to pitch in and help out. Key stakeholders include Meridian Health Services and Willowstone Family Services. Aside from a space from the living room, it requires clinicians, like I said, and peer support. Money's needed to hire the peer support and to staff them and train them and pay their salaries in the long term. Because the living room is a safe place to go for those in crisis, patients won't be charged for using its services, and as a result, cash flow is needed consistently to sustain this project. Also, small items like, a printer and a scanner are needed to, just logistically get the ball rolling and, do patient charting and, do peer support training and things like that. So there's a simple timeline illustrated here. In October 2021, secure grant funding and office space, renovate the area and create advertisements. Clinicians and hospital partners have already been found. In November 2021, hire and train the peer support, create legal forms for staff and patients, and disseminate advertisements. In December, the orientation will be held, employees will be signing documents, and we would launch the living room and then sustain the program in the long term. To evaluate, the measures that were, the goals that were set, basically, there are several ways of evaluating outcomes. To evaluate the short-term outcomes, count the number of ER visits that are solely for mental health and compare it to the statistic in the past year. Also, you could count the number of patients that see licensed psychiatric practitioners in the living room on a daily basis. To evaluate in the medium-term outcomes, it's important to ask the support group attendees on a survey how they heard of NAMI, and also to count the ones that were referred through the living room. Also, the average baseline wait time for mental health service was surveyed across facilities and determined to be about a month, which can be compared to be wait times for support groups and seeing clinicians in the living room. Finally, there are 2 evaluative measures for long-term outcomes, including asking patients that enter the living room about suicidal thoughts and plans to determine alternatives to them coming there. So after this, count the number of fatal mental health crises observed by medical examiners in the 8-county jurisdiction of NAMI West Central Indiana. The other evaluative measure is to keep a record of all living room attendees and send follow-up surveys at the 1-year, 3-year, and 5-year mark to determine successive mental health interventions and specifically ask about work and school-related outcomes. Finally, all the way to the right is the budget. You can see that there are, starting from the bottom, the expenses. There's administrative overhead of $10,000, and then other expenses like equipment, like having the small printer and scanner, like I said, is $800, $200 for supplies, $200 for printing flyers that would go in different therapist offices, and then also $27,000 because office space is $9 per square foot. Other expenses are salaries for clinicians, which are actually donated in kind from Meridian and Willowstone. So clinicians' salaries will be taken care of, but employee salaries and benefits is $3,744. And then training for employees is $3,000, and then peer support salary payroll is $7,800. The revenue is nothing because no one is charged when they come to the living room and they come in need. It's not fair to charge them. So the current proposal that is needed to start up the living room, the grant that is needed would be $52,744. Finally, I would just like to say that I want to acknowledge the executive director of NAMI West Central Indiana, Sherry Moore, who's been my mentor during this project, and I also wanted to acknowledge Professor Attila Herdelendi for educating me on grant writing and providing feedback through the project, and finally also to thank NAMI West Central Indiana as a whole for aiding me in this project and being patient with me through the entire process. And then you can see also as they're in the bottom right corner are the references on the bottom.